Family of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is continuing with preparations for his funeral due to take place on Saturday. Buthelezi's loved ones had requested that mourners cease to visit the Kwa Pandangene homestead to allow them to prepare for certain rituals and customs. Despite that, people have continued to flock to Makhlabatini, where the family has warmly received them. Our senior political reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo is monitoring proceedings there. Ziyanda, good afternoon to you. What's the family telling you this afternoon?
A very good afternoon to you, Stephen. Well, we have an opportunity to speak to the eldest daughter of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, that's Princess Phumzile, who has had a tough week, I must say, Stephen. And just before we went on air, she was reflecting on how sometimes, she's even losing her appetite because of just how busy it's been, but also the sense of loss that she's experiencing as a result of the passing of her father. We welcome you to Newzroom Afrika, Mdwana. Thank you for your indulgence. Let's talk about how you're doing at this moment.
I feel very humbled by the opportunity which the News Africa is giving us. It's really, one doesn't know where to start. It's difficult to talk about and even to believe, although sometimes you see things are happening which are preparing for the funeral, but you end up having that thing in your mind that maybe it's not true. It's very difficult to think this home without him, because we're used to him now that my mom passed on some years back, but we know that he is always there for us. So it's very difficult to think how are we going to cope without him in such a big area.
And as the eldest daughter, you would have shared the most memories with him by virtue of you being umafungwashe. Just some of your fondest memories with your father. I mean, many have reflected about how he was a visionary, how, he had fortitude and was strict at times, but strict with love. Your assessment of your relationship with your father now that you have to contend with him no longer being around.
Thank you. It's very tough to explain the relationship which we had. As besides, some say I'm the eldest daughter. I'm not the eldest daughter. I'm the eldest in the family. I'm his firstborn. So the other 7 siblings came after me. Unfortunately now 5 have passed on. We're only 3 now. From childhood he really gave us love because he wanted us to get the best schools. We were all sent to Twasana, which is a Catholic school, boarding school in Tlazache when you go to Vryheid. At 10 years old, I was already in a boarding school. I couldn't do my washing or ironing. So the nuns in the convent, I'm a sistela in our language, I'm a sistela, were looking after us, doing our washing, our laundry. And then we'll be ending up having some rash, but Father will send driver Zungu and Umbata at Daniel bringing boxes of sterilized milk, Pro-Nutro. He wanted us to be healthy. He was sending everything. From childhood we were getting his love, although when we were born he was just busy. We couldn't understand. Maybe I end up thinking that maybe as time goes on, things will slow down, but unfortunately it was not to be. He has been busy until the last day. Because it was just announced he had retired, and then we elected our president now, which is Phumzile Buthelezi. But he was still with him, guiding him as his son. Because what I'm happy with, President Buthelezi is not new in the party.
Yes. From
his childhood, they say in Ghana, even at the university, he was a staunch member. Yes, at Desmo. Even he has been a mayor of Big 5 Hlabisa. He has been a principal of the school. It's a learned person, because nowadays we can't have people who represent people but uneducated. We got the best. Some went to Kamane, like my brother and my 2 brothers, Nelly Suzulu, who is no more, 2 years in Kamane. From Kamane, from Twasane, I went to St. Francis to St. Augustine's. While I was in St. Augustine's, he had about a best school for girls only. He took me out of St. Augustine's. He wanted me to go to the school for girls only. And then my other two sisters were also sent to the school, which is just for girls. We couldn't see boys anywhere in the school unless Oshangege, but you couldn't meet with them. So he really did the best for us to give us the foundation. Well, we can do wrong things on our own as adults, but from childhood, he was really taking care of us in spite of his busy schedule. Since we were born, he has always been busy. Even my mother didn't have time. You know, I realized as I grow up that, oh, my mother also didn't have time, you know, with her husband, to enjoy, to be with her husband and her children. So sometimes people just judge you from far, not knowing, not in your shoes, how is it happening, how do you feel if you are really there. So you only know when you are really involved inside, not to say, how, hey, that one is misbehaving, or why, whereas maybe it's stress or other things. So as we grow up, we really appreciate everything he's done for us, even when he was in hospital. Even on the 27th, I was supposed to go and address women at Ngotu as the national chairperson of the IFP, but I had to cancel because I had to meet on his birthday at the hospital.
And don't you appreciate having spent his birthday with him, at least his 95th birthday, because it was only family during that celebration, so at least you got to have him fully to yourselves as people who always had to share him with the nation. Yes,
we're very happy to be with him, although we didn't like the venue. Unfortunately, we couldn't change it. He was still in the hospital. We were hoping that by the time of his birthday, he will be at home. But unfortunately, he was there in the hospital. The hospital were very kind for us. They gave us a big boardroom. They took him out of his ward. He was in a big ward. We put the balloons, everything. It was close. You could think maybe are getting to a certain hall. He was lying there in the bed, very happy and able to speak. And I do have even pictures when I was talking to him. I came with a big cake because there are some other cakes. We ordered a cake from Ngotu, a guy who's baking. It has 5 cakes, and with all his pictures around the cake. So he was happy. I was full of joy when he saw us coming into the boy who baked this cake, pushing the trolley, the hospital trolley next to his bed. And then when I talked to him, he even lifted his hand and said, hey, Tanami, we thank God. Because we all thank God. We thought he had recovered, he was recovering.
Where were you when you found out that he passed away? Were you one of those that was by his bedside, like Prince
my brother?
Buthelezi? Yeah.
No, I'm always away like him. I'm hardly at home because of many things, legislature duties, as I'm a member of the provincial, as the national chairperson of IFP in South Africa. I must be sure that women will take care. There are cases, GPV, we attend cases. We go to attend funerals of the girls. Sometimes I see in your screens, and then I see that this thing is very critical. Let us follow it. Like the Mutua family, you remember in Bumbulu, a girl who was killed on the 31st, when everybody is excited. Oh, but it was not to be. So we attend many GPV. I was away. I was on my way coming home with the hope that I would see him and then proceed to Enyogeni, because amongst my portfolio committees in the legislature, arts and culture is also my portfolio, which include all the events, the traditional events are falling under arts and culture. So I thought I would come home. I was on my way from Durban. I would greet him and then proceed to Enyogeni for the reed dance. But 5:30, my brother phoned me while I was not yet at Ulundi, saying how they're doing to sell his last. And then I couldn't understand it. Your father is no more. I cannot describe the way I just found myself screaming. I didn't know what to do. We had to come, and then when they were taking him to the mortuary, I went to the mortuary. When I arrived at the mortuary, they are already coming up here. I asked the people in the mortuary, hey, may they please open him, I want to see him. And his bodyguards go say me, oh, I just don't know. I just hope God will make it possible that those who are in charge of Amapoisa will really give them a special attention. Because they have been dedicated their lives up to now. Even now, they're still looking after him at the mortuary. They are exchanging 10 o'clock, others are going out, others are coming in until we bury him. So I went to the mortuary, I asked, and I was surprised that even the bodyguards, his aides, haven't seen him. And then they said, hey, we're getting a chance. The one who's in charge, warrant officers, told them, hey, come, here's a chance. Now the princess is asking them to open him. I get into the room, to the mortuary, and then he was covered, and then I opened him. I just couldn't. I kissed him, his face, his mouth, everywhere, kissing him, hoping that he will respond. He was just quiet, as if he was going to talk. It's even very difficult to think how are we going to cope without him, because he has been a pillar of strength to all of us, to the nation, to the Buthelezi clan, although it is the regent who has always been looking after the nation, and there's some of his donors like Ushwala and others. And Ushwala has been a bodyguard of His Majesty. He has been in DRC as a soldier, army. He was working at the army, came back, then they were included into SAPS. So we do feel sorry for them, because they are the ones who have been looking after the Buthelezi clan on his behalf.
Yes,
trying to fulfill all his wishes with the nation.
And he had many roles that he played within the nation. And I remember seeing recently a report talking about how your father's heart was broken over the frayed relations between him and His Majesty the King of the AmaZulu nation. What informed or prompted you to say that, and what do you believe should happen now that it would seem he passed away and that didn't seem to have been resolved?
Just as I had mentioned, that unfortunately, although people tell me that I took after him, I also know that I know some of the things that I can't, like pretending, I just can't. I know I'm like him. So I couldn't just, when the royal family were all here, the late king's wives were here, in the all royal family members were here 2 days ago. I had to say that we are feeling bad, because one of the main thing which contributed to his ill health is this thing what you are asking me about. Whereas he has been fighting his life, and then people are saying, some of the people are saying he must be killed. But at the end it's like this. But we'll look forward and see.
And when you look as well as about your father's role as the AmaZulu traditional prime minister, I mean, the Buthelezi clan, I think for maybe over a century, has played that role. Your father playing 7 decades as prime minister, all from the time of King Beguzulu, the late King Gudu Zwelithini, and as well as King Misuzulu Kazwelithini. Do you believe that, would you feel any kind of way if now a new traditional prime minister doesn't come from the Buthelezi clan? I mean, yes, it's not necessarily the Buthelezis who become traditional prime ministers, but the clan has served the nation for many years now.
Well, I'm also not expecting that it must come. For instance, now I don't see any Buthelezi who can fill his shoes. So I'm expecting anything. And as I explained, when the royal family members were here, the late king's wives and Koko Kwabini, who was the mother of the late king, when I explained that my grandmother, I spent most of the time with her. This house was built in 1978. Even when it was built, I do have my bedroom here. But I was staying most of the time with my grandmother, Umton Makoko. He will tell me that he had her own boyfriend. But he had to respect his uncle ngoba kunemission kusho ukuthi uNkulunkulu noma angazi kanjani the ancestors ukuthi ufuna kube kanjani. Well, imagine your brother saying you must leave your boyfriend and go and marry this man. I was ungakanani, how old is that man? The brother Prince Mangosuthu said, he's just my age. And then the princess will go, but I won't even be able to get children with him. And then the brother got angry and said, Kushoba Makoko, who's telling you that? And then he had to hide, protecting his other sisters. So it's completely not the same, because this thing was he was just on duty. He was sent to come and marry Nkosumatole. Bengekho in love. Yamachina vile mtu amba ushada lo yeke lo thandana naye. But in that respect, I don't think these days kono ongenza leyo nto. So I am not expecting to a traditional prime minister can come from Buthelezi because we nthola ngobuqhawe babo. And this can kunengxabano ayihlalisha umntwana wayilamula lapha uNkosumatolo wathi ayi lobuhlakani ngeke kufuna kube khona ingane ayithathayo izogana la uqinisa ubuhlobo ozoba uyise wabantwana. From there, that's why mase kulethwa uzozogana la wathi umntwana cha phela uyise wakhe angisakwazi ukugana endlunkulu ngani ngoba sengithengi uyise wabo abantwana.
And let's talk about what we heard, the message on behalf of the siblings, Umntwana Zuzifa, speaking about the fact that you will do everything in your power to preserve the legacy of your father, even if it means you're unpopular at times. And I raise this because I'm sure you are aware of the things that have been said about your father in light of the news that he has passed away. Firstly, how has that affected you personally? Because you did mention that it wasn't always easy to have a father like yours, but also how are you going to go about preserving his legacy and dealing with and contending with that kind of reaction?
Well, we hope we'll be able to preserve his legacy. For instance, I'm a member of the Prince Mangosuthu Foundation.
Yes.
And the chairperson of his legacy is President Velinkosi Nhlabisa. We've got a committee members, which are not more than 10, who are in the committee for the legacy, trying to preserve his legacy. We are just hoping it will happen even when he is no more there. And I think we must really cherish him when he is no more, because sometimes when we are still with the people, they don't notice what we've been doing and what we have been such a big gift to them. But when we are no more, that's the time they can realize that, hey, now someone is missing. I think we'll try our level best, depending on the leaders who are leading, because it's not a family member who's a chairperson, it's our president of the party. So our members, myself, Tutuwezo Zuzifa, my brother who comes after me, and the last one who is number 7, in fact, if we're all still alive, Uswiselwe Uspeto. We are members, 3 of us were members of that legacy, and some other members here. But our chairperson on top is our president, Velinkosi Nhlabisa, who is also my leader of the official opposition at the legislature.
But personally, what did it mean to have a father called Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi growing up as the eldest one? You would have lived through many decades.
Even if today I was supposed to choose for myself, who do you want to be your father? I'll still say, no, I prefer MG to be my father. And as I've mentioned with the interview with Mr. Koke and others, that, you know, when we were growing up, he taught us everything, education and about how the way of life. He said, no, you mustn't just run to get married or some business people. He used to tell us, if you love him, Tanami, free. Telling us as we were 4 girls and 3 boys. Then he used to tell us that he used to tell us and he really proved it. And in my dreams, you know, I used to wish, I wish I could get a man exactly like him, who's got love the way he loved my mother, and he loved us, but it was not to be.
And clearly, from what you're saying, he was also someone who believed in the role of women. I mean, you occupy a high position in the party as well. Just tell me about that aspect of him, especially when sometimes culture does not permit one to do so.
You know, our father, Umntwana Wapindangene, has always been respecting women. I remember even the Estel government, he's the one who introduced this thing when the husband died. I remember Mama Africa, Mrs. Africa, I know them. Ngangfunde nanda semerebe kwa mashu, or real businessmen, businesswomen. Masekushona abayeni babo, then no, izinto nje as if you don't exist. And then he used to make an example when he further speaks. Sometimes people think that umuntu wesifazane is just owning amapitiko takhe kuphela. He's the one who made umthetho kuhulumeni kwaZulu when he was the chief minister ukuthi ke umuntu wesifazane akwazi ukuthatha indodana kuthiwe yiyona ngoba umfana isibugada wena uma wayishaya lo mthetho. He's the one wenza umthetho ukuthi amakhosi ayakwazi amakhosi esifazane ukuphatha njengoba sesinamakhosi amaningi nokuthi abambele izingane zawo because sometimes ube uncle. And then uncle said, no, we know that from the late king, we had such a problem. The late king almost didn't occupy the position because now the uncle was saying, so he has always been respecting women. I always complain with my colleagues who are in the NSC that, if when there is food, you'll say, no, ladies first, teaching this leadership or IFP leadership. Yeah. As we meet every Monday, we meet as national executive of the party. He'll say, ladies, go and dish first. But now, since as he's in hospital, it's not happening. Even during the meeting, while we are still continuing the meeting, which was not happening, I can see now the respect. They are losing respect.
A parting shot to those who may not have known him as intimately as you do.
Well, we will always treasure him, really. As a staunch Christian, I remember, growing up, don't talk about this new place, which was built in 78. Here, he will just drive, rush to keep time. He was very sensitive about time. If he's a bit late, you will get a reason which is really was unavoidable. He will go leave us and say, "Ngifuna esontweni." We'll have to shove my bicycle to follow him. It's quite a long distance to St. Mary's Anglican Church. So shove my bicycle and follow him. And you imagine the services, church services finished. We wish to get a lift in the car. You can't. Well, where are you going to leave your bicycle? Yeah. You'll have to come back with your bicycle. He said, you are sleeping or overslept, but I want to see you in church. So even at home, even that one used to get up early to encourage in hospital, conducting services for the staff, chapel. After some weeks, he used to make a bundle lesaga, abopelilo bundle lesaga for some days. So sikhule ngenkolo nje like ngabe yazinziso ngathi impela ke akazi lutho ngokukholwa, like the great grandson was saying here that every day mangikhona siyathandaza. And then 2 years ago wasipha amabhayibheli which that Bible is supposed to be in the museum the way elikhulu ngakhona. Wathi mntanami, I don't want when I'm dead you fight nibanga amabhayibheli ami. Wabhala my brother, wabhala my sister, 3 big Bibles, but they are not the same. So he has been a pillar of strength, a good exemplary leader. I wouldn't regret really to have a father, because some guys were healing la bena bahambayo.
All right, that's Princess Phumzile Buthelezi reflecting on the life of her father, sharing intimate memories that she had. If she could choose whether or not to have a father like Umntwana kaPhindangene, she would choose him again.